You wake up, move through the motions, perform, smile, respond. But somewhere between the morning coffee and the nightly silence, there's a strange emptiness, a subtle, aching whisper that something essential has been lost. Not in the world around you, but in you. We live in a world that rewards appearances, efficiency, and noise, but the soul, it doesn't shout. It waits. It waits until your distractions fail, until your body begins to ache without explanation, until your joy becomes faint, and your relationships grow thin. And then it speaks, softly but insistently. Remember me. This is not a video about success. It's not about being better, faster, more liked. This is a journey into the wilderness of your own being, and these are 7 reasons why your soul, tired, silenced, forgotten, is now begging to be a priority. Let us begin. It starts with a sigh you didn't notice, a weariness that sleep doesn't cure. Moments when you're surrounded by people, yet feel utterly alone. Maybe you've told yourself, I'm just tired, but it's a tired that goes deeper than muscles. It lives in the bones of your being, like a sadness without a name. This is not depression in the clinical sense. This is disconnection from who you are, beneath the roles, beneath the obligations, the mask, the endless to-do lists. The soul doesn't demand through drama. It withdraws. And in its absence, life feels muted. Food loses taste. Music loses magic. Love loses presence. We become experts at hiding it. Busy schedules, smiling photos, scrolling through lives that seem more alive than ours. But at night, when the world sleeps and the mirror reflects something deeper than the face, the ache returns. This ache is a gift. It's not a weakness. It's a message. The soul doesn't want you to be perfect. It wants you to be whole. And wholeness begins with honesty, with recognizing that your pain is not random. It's a map, a call back home. There was once a version of you who laughed freely, who moved slowly with wonder in their eyes, who dreamed without needing permission, but that version was slowly traded for acceptance, for survival, for love. This is the tragedy of the persona, the mask we craft to belong. We become what the world applauds. We learn what keeps others happy. And somewhere in the performance, our real voice fades. Maybe you were the strong one, the peacemaker, the achiever. Maybe you were the one who didn't ask for much, who always gave. And maybe in all that effort to be good, kind, responsible, you betrayed your soul. The true self doesn't disappear. It retreats. It waits in the shadows, in your longings, in your fatigue, in the quiet moments that make you want to cry without knowing why. We tell ourselves, I'm just going through a phase. But what if the phase is your soul asking, when will you remember me? Carl Jung spoke of this beautifully. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not the version others need you to be, not the role you've perfected, but the self you left behind when you decided to survive instead of live. We often look at our lives and ask, why don't I feel joy anymore? But joy is not a reward. It's a symptom of alignment. And when your life is out of sync with your essence, even beauty feels bland. The forgotten self is not gone. It leaves clues in your irritability, in the hobbies you no longer touch, in the quiet envy you feel toward people who seem free. This isn't about abandoning your responsibilities. It's about reclaiming what is essential, about realizing that your soul doesn't want you to burn out for approval. It wants you to burn bright from within. So ask yourself, who were you before the world told you who to be? And what would it mean to live not as a role but as a truth? Because the moment you begin to remember yourself, the healing begins. From an early age, we learn what is acceptable, what emotions are safe to express, which desires bring approval and which bring shame. And so we begin the quiet work of repression. We swallow anger with a smile, hide fear behind competence, mask sadness with productivity. But emotions don't vanish when ignored. They sink into the body, into the psyche. Like letters never opened, like guests never welcomed, and with time, they begin to shape us. You may feel this as tension in your shoulders, a gut that's always tight, a throat that closes when you want to speak your truth, It's no coincidence. The soul, when silenced, speaks through the body. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The pain you think is random? The patterns you keep repeating? They're not mistakes, they're messages. Repression is not peace, it's a prison. It turns the full spectrum of human feeling into something dangerous. We become numb to ourselves, disconnected from the instincts that once guided us. And what is a life lived without instinct? It's like walking blindfolded through your own story, performing a role, but forgetting the plot. Think of your inner world like a garden. When you repress, you don't throw the weeds away. You bury them deeper. But they still grow, twisting through your relationships, your choices, your self-worth. The question is not whether you've repressed anything. It's how long you've been carrying it, and what it's costing you. Maybe it's time to open the letters, to feel what was never felt, to say what was never said, not to destroy your life, but to reclaim it. Because no one becomes whole by pretending they've never been hurt. You become whole by facing the hurt with compassion, by listening to your wounds instead of locking them away. And in that listening, something shifts. The soul doesn't demand perfection. It asks for presence, for truth, for breath. And the moment you exhale what you've been holding for so long is the moment you begin to return to yourself. You've felt it, the strange pull of a dream that won't leave you, a sudden tear during a quiet song. That gut feeling you ignored, only to regret it later. These are not random, they are the whispers of the soul. Because when you don't listen with your ears, the soul speaks in other ways, through your body, through patterns, through the unseen threads that keep tugging at your heart. Jung understood this better than anyone. The dream is the small hidden door in the deepest and most intimate sanctum of the soul. Dreams, synchronicities, sudden moods, they're not nonsense. They are the native language of your unconscious. We live in a culture obsessed with logic, clarity, control, but the soul doesn't speak that dialect. It speaks in metaphor, like poetry written in shadow. And if we keep demanding explanations, we miss the invitation. Have you ever repeated a pattern that made no sense? Chosen relationships that felt like déjà vu? Felt drawn to something that your mind couldn't explain? That's not you being broken. That's your soul trying to get your attention. Because beneath your daily routine, there's a deeper rhythm. One that doesn't care about your plans, only your truth. The question is not, what's wrong with me? The question is, what is trying to emerge from me? The headache that arrives every Sunday night, the restlessness that stirs when you sit alone, the constant longing like a door slightly ajar, these are not annoyances, they're clues. When you stop running, when you begin to listen, you realize your soul has been speaking all along. In every coincidence, in every emotion that rises without warning, in every silence that feels impossibly loud. And once you begin to listen, really listen, life shifts. You start to recognize meaning in what once seemed meaningless. You begin to trust your inner compass again. You stop forcing and begin flowing. Because the soul doesn't want control. It wants connection. It wants to be seen. It wants to live. And when you let it speak, it will tell you where you lost yourself and how to find your way back. Have you ever felt an intense reaction to someone without fully understanding why? A stranger who irritates you, a loved one whose actions stir a storm inside you, a public figure who triggers something deep and inexplicable. This is not just about them. This is a projection, the unconscious act of seeing outside what we haven't yet faced within. Carl Jung explained it simply. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. We don't just see others, we see our pain in them, our unhealed wounds, our unlived potentials. We project our shadow, the parts we've buried, the anger we're not allowed to show, the vulnerability we were taught to hide, the dreams we abandoned because they felt too risky, too big. And so, when someone expresses those forbidden parts, our soul reacts. Not because they are wrong, but because they awaken what we've exiled. It's easier to criticize than to confront, to blame than to feel. But what if the people who trigger you most are your greatest teachers? What if every judgment is a mirror? every irritation, a message, every intense emotion, a doorway to a hidden part of you. Think of the woman who speaks her mind boldly. Does she annoy you? Or awaken the part of you that longs to be that free? The man who sets firm boundaries, is he selfish? Or showing you the line you've been afraid to draw? Projections are not curses, they are invitations. They call us inward. They ask, where did you learn to abandon yourself? Whose expectations are you still carrying? What part of you have you labeled unacceptable, and why? To stop projecting is not to stop feeling, it's to pause and turn the feeling inward, to ask not, what is wrong with them, but what part of me is asking to be healed through this? The soul is wise. It uses relationships not to distract us, but to reveal us. And the moment we take responsibility for our projections, the world changes. Not because others change, but because we finally begin to see clearly. And in that clarity we come one step closer to our authentic self. Have you ever felt the need to withdraw, even when life expects you to engage? Moments when conversations feel shallow, the world feels too fast, and something deep inside you whispers, stop, go inward. This is the soul's call, not to escape, but to return, to the quiet places where truth still lives, to the inner forest where your real self waits, untouched by the world's demands. The forest in many myths is a symbol of transformation. It is dark, uncertain, filled with shadows, but it is also where magic happens, where the old self dies and the true self begins to breathe. We are not meant to live constantly exposed, always connected, endlessly productive. There is a sacred rhythm, one that includes retreat, solitude, and silence. But in today's world, silence feels like absence, stillness feels like failure, and solitude, like punishment. But the soul doesn't thrive in constant motion. It blooms in stillness. It speaks in whispers, and you cannot hear it if you are always running. Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Looking inside is not always beautiful. It's not a spa day or a gentle meditation. Sometimes it's sitting with grief that never had a voice. It's meeting the parts of yourself you've avoided. It's facing the question, who am I really when no one is watching? But in that raw, honest silence, you meet the real you. The one who doesn't need to impress. The one who remembers old dreams. The one who longs for a life aligned with meaning, not approval. The forest may feel lonely at first, but it's not isolation, it's incubation. It's where healing begins and where clarity returns. Because you are not lost, you are being called back, not by the world, but by your own soul. And the only question is, will you answer? There comes a point in the journey where the pain becomes a teacher, the silence becomes sacred, and the soul, long ignored, long silenced, begins to rise. This is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering the self you abandoned to survive. It's about returning to the original blueprint that life, pain, and performance tried to erase. Wholeness is not perfection. It's not a life without scars. It's a life where the scars have names and meaning, where every part of you, light and shadow, has a seat at the table. Carl Jung reminded us, I'd rather be whole than good. And wholeness means no longer rejecting your anger, no longer shaming your sadness, no longer hiding your needs behind a smile. It means loving the child in you who was once silenced, honoring the adult who has fought so hard to keep going, and welcoming the soul who has waited, patiently, tenderly, for you to return. When you make your soul a priority, the world doesn't magically change, but you do. You stop chasing validation. You stop betraying your intuition. You stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. You begin to live with intention, with honesty, with presence. This is what the process of individuation truly means, to become undivided, to stop living as fragments and start living as one. And yes, it takes courage. Yes, it may cost relationships, identities, illusions, but what you gain is incomparable. You gain yourself, your peace, your inner compass, your freedom. The rebirth of wholeness is not loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet. Like the first breath after a long silence, but in that breath you finally come home. So I ask you now, what part of your soul have you silenced for too long? What dreams have you postponed in the name of responsibility? What emotions are waiting to be heard, not judged? Maybe, just maybe, you were never broken, just buried, under expectations, fears, and roles that were never truly yours. But now comes something is stirring, a quiet knowing, a pull toward authenticity, rest, and truth. And if this video resonated with you, if you felt something move in your chest, a tear, a memory, a breath, that was your soul, asking to be seen, begging to be a priority, not an afterthought. If my work has helped guide you back to yourself, consider supporting this channel with a super thanks. Every contribution helps us continue creating these sacred spaces for healing, reflection, and inner transformation. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel. Your next step might already be waiting. In the video appearing right now on your screen, follow it, not because you should, but because something inside you already knows it's time, because healing doesn't happen all at once. It happens in quiet, brave moments, like this one,